All right, let's talk about how to translate daily carbohydrate recommendations to food choices. It's not necessary to know all the details and all the basics. The important thing is we need to translate our knowledge to food choices when we are recommending carbohydrates intake. So we will talk about translating daily carbohydrate recommendations to food choices in this part. So this table is from your textbook, and we have food groups here, fruits, vegetables, grains, nuts, seeds, legumes, dairy products, sweets, and added sugar. And these columns are based on different kilocalorie. For instance, the first column, right to the food group, is the number of servings per 1,800 kilocalorie. So for this amount of energy per day, we need 4 servings of fruits, 3 to 4 servings of vegetables, 6 servings of grains, and for 3,100 kilocalorie per day, the number of servings for fruits is 6. Also for vegetables is 6. 12 to 13 servings for grains. And remember, when we say the 1 serving size of grain is 15 gram of carbohydrate. So that's huge number. That's a lot. So these are like when we are trying to recommend carbohydrate, we cannot just say to the athletes, okay, go ahead and try to consume 7 gram per kilogram of your body weight of carbohydrates. So it's not giving much information to the clients, right? We need to some kind of translating our recommendations to food choices based on these food groups. And here we have some easy to store and prepare carbohydrate containing foods like bread or waffles, pancakes, cereal, etc. And here like some storage and preparation tips. So let's say, for instance, for vegetables, it says fresh carrots tend to last a long time when stored in a cool place. That's true. We all experience that. So when we store carrots in the refrigerator, it lasts very long, right? It lasts over 2 weeks or 3 weeks. I would say that. Frozen or canned vegetables are easy to store and prepare. So these are like for athletes who are like training very too long, and they have other things to do a day. So these tips would help them a lot, like how to save time on food prepping, but on the other hand, try to eat the a balanced diet based on their individual needs. So this slide, this table, is also from your textbook. And here we have a carbohydrate choices when eating in restaurants. Sometimes athletes try to eat in a restaurant and try to enjoy their meals. So we can also use these kind of things, not to like limit them or restrict them. Sometimes they need to go out and eat at a restaurant. So these meal menu items can help them also how to try to meet their needs by just eating at a restaurant. We have vegetarian diets and vegan diets. There is a slight difference. I know you already know the difference. But here, like when we say vegetarian diets, they are not eating meat, fish, and poultry. But some vegetarians, they consume animal products like they eat eggs, cheese, yogurt, milk, cream, all those from dairy products. They all eat those, or eggs from poultry. But when we say vegans, they are avoiding any foods of animal origin, including eggs, yogurt, and milk. Here is an interesting thing. Both groups can meet sports nutrition recommendations. You know why athletes who are vegans or vegetarians, they can train and practice a lot, and their carbohydrate needs will be high. But even though they are vegetarians and vegans, they can meet their needs, their sports nutrition recommendations. Why do you think is that the case? Many carbohydrate food sources are plant-based, like grains, legumes. For vegetarians, we have carbs in milk, yogurt, eggs. So they can easily meet their carbohydrate recommendations. So many carbohydrate containing foods are of plant origin, like starches, grains, wheat, rye, barley, rice. We have starchy vegetables, like potatoes, sweet potatoes, or regular potatoes, nuts, fruits, sugar, vegetables, legumes, and beans. All these are all these food items are containing carbs, so they can easily meet their needs. Sugar is consumed. Like when we say sugar, we mean simple carbs, which means like fructose, galactose, or glucose, or sucrose, I would say. So like monosaccharides or disaccharides. So when we say sugar, doesn't necessarily mean table sugar. It can be a table sugar, but there are other types like soft drinks, sweetened beverages, candy, jam, sweetened grains. So people in general can get sugar by eating different food items, not just honey or table sugar. Um, so sugar is consumed as these items, and we are not including sugar in fruits and milk. And also athletes or like people in general, sometimes they prefer artificial sweeteners, or I would say alternative sweeteners. So alternative sweeteners, we categorize alternative sweeteners. So people try to replace sugar or natural sugar in the food items with alternative sweeteners. And we can categorize alternative sweeteners to artificial sweeteners, sugar alcohols, and other high intensity sweeteners. So this is one group of alternative sweeteners, which is called artificial sweeteners. These are also called non-nutritive sweeteners. These are the sugar-based substances or like sweeteners that are not found naturally in food. They provide sweet taste, but they have few or no calories. So that's why we call them non-nutritive sweeteners. But other types of sweeteners, sometimes they are referred to as nutritive sweeteners because they provide some energy and again calories. But artificial sweeteners, they are non-nutritive sweeteners, so they provide no calories and they are FDA approved. Stevia is one of them, is one example of artificial sweeteners. And it is 100 to 300 times sweeter than table sugar. It's sweeter than sucrose. Up to 4 milligram per kilogram per day is safe. And this table again is from your textbook. It listed all the artificial sweeteners, their in like the sweetness rate, or score, when when were they discovered, and so on and so forth. You don't need to remember this, or in detail actually. So, but it's good to know these names. So whenever you are reading an ingredient list on a food label, so if you come across one of these terms, so you would know what those are. So when we see like stevia, we know it's like an artificial sweetener. Lactose intolerance, this is a condition, and some people are suffering from this. These people with lactose intolerance, they lack the enzyme called lactase. So they lack this enzyme, and the this enzyme activity declines at about age 2. 100% of Asian Americans and Native Americans lack these enzyme, lack lactase. 70% of African Americans, 53% of Hispanic population, 6 to 22% of Caucasians. So these are lactose intolerance. They lack this enzyme lactase, which digests a lactose in milk. And when we say lactose intolerance, it consists of some signs and symptoms like intestinal gas, bloating, abdominal pain, abdominal discomfort, diarrhea, nausea. So these symptoms are referred to as lactose intolerance whenever a person consumes milk and they develop these symptoms w- after like going some doing some like physical and medical checking, we can some sort of be sure that those people have lactose intolerance, because whenever they drink milk, they develop these symptoms. But remember, this lactose intolerance, it's totally different from milk allergy. So milk allergy is different. In milk allergy, the body responds and reacts to the protein in milk. And that's totally a different case with lactose intolerance. Milk allergy is more advanced and more aggressive and more serious. For people with lactose intolerance, can we like recommend, okay, try not to consume milk? Can we do that? I would say no. I would not recommend that. It's better to recommend actually milk, but remember, if they drink half a cup of milk, which contains 6 gram of lactose, it's tolerable in lactose intolerance. So like 4 ounces glass of milk is 6 gram of lactose, and that's totally tolerable with these people. And also, milk provides calcium, magnesium, some vitamins like vitamin D and protein. So I would not recommend um, like avoiding consuming milk. There are some techniques for lactose intolerance. They can definitely consume fermented milk products like yogurt, chocolate milk. If they drink a milk with a meal, they will not develop any sign and symptoms. They can also use lactase tablets. So these are the tablets that contain enzyme, and they can just drop some of these lactase enzyme into the glass of milk. They can also try to consume lactose-free milk. And lactose maldigestion contributes to low intake and low bone mineral density, which consequently results in osteoporosis. So that's why if they are not vegans and if they are okay with milk, so we would recommend milk and not just try to restrict them. And we have fermentable carbohydrates, FODMAP. This is a very, very common term um, in medical and also in nutrition. You would see this a lot in hospital as well, in hospital setting, in clinical setting. FODMAP stands for fermentable oligo, di, and monosaccharides and polyols. So remember, polyols are sugar alcohols. Those are short chain carbohydrates. So polyols are also known as sugar alcohols, and these are nutritive sweeteners. So polyols are nutritive sweeteners. FODMAP, they have poor absorption. They draw water into the gastrointestinal tract, and they have a rapid fermentation ability by bacteria in the gut. So these are, are causing gastrointestinal upset. These are some examples like FODMAP containing foods like onions, beets, cabbage, garlic, apples, milk, yogurt, cheese, ice cream, and sugar sweetened foods. We have fruits, honey, and for regarding the polyols, these are some examples like sorbitol and mannitol. These are all sugar alcohols, and they can be found naturally in food items like fruits or vegetables, and also they can be added to different products like chewing gum. So in chewing gum we have I don't remember the name of that polio. It was xylitol, something like that, and and that's the sugar alcohol which is added to chewing gum. So these are some examples of foods like FODMAP containing foods. And let me tell you this. When we say oligosaccharides, so we talked about monosaccharides, disaccharides, and polysaccharides. Oligosaccharides are the chain of glucose or monosaccharides, but up to 10. So when we have up to 10 mm, like molecules of monosaccharides, it's called oligosaccharides. So, like when we say disaccharides, those are two monosaccharides. But oligosaccharides, there are like between like 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. And we call them oligosaccharides. And after that, we just call them polysaccharides. So let's review this. Which of the following correctly identifies the predominant form of carbs found in the blood and in storage, respectively? So we did that. So it's glucose and glycogen. What's the primary role of GLUT4 transporters during exercise? It's breakdown of glycogen delivered. No, GLUT4 is a transporter, so it's a carrier in the cell membrane, if you remember that. So it transport glucose into exercising skeletal muscles. Yes, that would be C. According to carbohydrate recommendations for athletes, how many grams per kilogram of body weight should an endurance athlete consume in the 24 to 36 hours before a long distance event? it's endurance athlete, and they gonna do a long distance event. So I would say 10 to 12 gram per kilogram of body weight. They have to kind of replenish their glycogen storage both in liver and in muscle mass. What's the main advantage of carbohydrate intake immediately after intense exercise? Reduces gastrointestinal upset, delays fatigue during the next exercise session, maximizes the rate of muscle glycogen resynthesis, enhances lipolysis. So it's a C. It maximizes the rate of muscle glycogen resynthesis. Which of the following statements is true regarding glycemic index? Glycemic index compares a food's impact on blood glucose to that of glucose or white bread. Low glycemic index foods cause rapid spikes in blood glucose. That's the other way. So low GI foods cause slow spikes in blood glucose. GI or glycemic index measures the sweetness level of carbohydrates. Glycemic index is unrelated to insulin secretion. So it's A. It compares a food's impact on blood glucose. So remember, we talked about the glycemic response, and then we covered the glycemic index, and there was a formula for that, how to do that. It was like the area under the curve of a given food divided by the area under the curve of a white bread, or like 50 gram of a white bread, multiplied by 100. So that was kind of a measurement of food's impact on blood glucose. So this is all about chapter 4. And if you want to do a quick review, so we talked about the basics of, like, the foundations of carbs, like their structures, how many types. We talked about like simple carbs, complex carbs, and their digestion and absorption and transportation. And then we also talked about the recommendations of carbohydrate intakes among athletes, pre-exercise, during exercise, and after exercise. As I said, remember, we care about carbohydrate and fluid intake pre, during, and after training or exercise. Those are two main nutrients that we are mainly focusing on in this course. Regarding fat and protein, for protein, after exercise important, but during exercise, we can add some meals we can provide some meals to athletes who are engaging in a long distance physical activity, but most of the time those are just fluid and carbs. We are not we don't we care about protein and fat, but not as much we care as carbs and fluid.